in here, right? Looks like we do. Awesome. Okay, thank you everybody for joining the session. I'm gonna see if I'm just gonna do a double check against the list here just to make sure that everybody's in. And it looks like we're doing pretty good. Okay, we're gonna be short of time. We always run out of time with these things, so I'm just gonna jump in anyways. First, it's a total honor to introduce our experts for today, both Ray White and Brett Newman. Going to okay, which view do you guys prefer? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we got our subject matter experts are Ray White and Brett Newman. They are both the co-founders of a really cool app called Joyages. So just think Voyages, but with a lot of joy in it. So this app is awesome. It helps people be proactive about their mental health, and it gives them the opportunity to build good habits, build a positive mindset, and it literally helps them rewire their brain. And they are both highly experienced, obviously, because of the app that they created. They're highly experienced in the industry. Ray is a best-selling author. He's sold 4 books on leadership, happiness, success, building great cultures. He basically teaches people how to be healthy in all aspects of life. And Brett's got a master's in healthcare administration and also in business and finance at Texas A&M. So if there's anybody on the call who are Longhorns or LSU fans, do not hold that against him. I swear to you, he's a real nice guy. He's an expert in clinical analysis. So his hyper focus is reporting and outcomes, so the healthcare industry gets enough information to evolve. Basically, did I nail that right, guys?
Great.
Sick, awesome. In case you're wondering who this funny-looking guy is with, funny ears and a big forehead, I'm Chad Pearson. I'm the Director of Business Development at Plexxis Software. I got a background in law enforcement, and I coach professional athletes, and I teach a course on high performance during chaos and critical stress for employees here at Plexxis. That's kind of where the marriage came in between the three of us. So let's just jump right into things. Today, we're going to talk about psychological safety and kind of the marriage it has with high performance. And now, before we jump into the experts here, you might be wondering why the word battlefield was in the description for this content. And the acronym behind me, right over here, VUCA, is going to help us explain a little bit why. So I just want to touch on this a little bit before Ray and Brett take over. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it is a term that was born in the military to characterize really difficult environments that have a tendency or a high risk of bodily harm, death, and extreme critical stress. And the reason it's important for today's conversation is that outside of the battlefield, construction really is the next most VUCA environment. Now, everybody, fights their own battles, and even in a straightforward environment, we all struggle through the daily stressors. But when you throw the VUCA environment, the challenges of the VUCA environment on top of that, as well as the COVID constraints on job sites and our personal lives, that creates a compounding stress, which amplifies and exacerbates the impact that stress has on our behaviors and our performance. And it also complicates learning of new skills that you would use to mitigate stress or the impact of stress. And that's really where Ray and Brett are going to help our understanding and give us some tools that we can bring back to our companies to help us be more effective at being proactive with our mental health and perform at our best despite the challenges of a VUCA environment. So on that note, Ray, let's start with you. What is psychological safety? Why is it important? And if we got time, how can we create it in our culture.
So psychological safety is the feeling that you could say and work the way you want to work. And the example that Brett's using here, Brett, you want to fill in on that?
Yeah, no, I'll kick us off at least. So when I thought of, again, on the battlefield, which is not necessarily applicable to right now, which we'll get to that point in a second, but I immediately thought of the Spartan warriors. And so if you're familiar with Spartan warfare, what basically they invented or they started is a thing called the phalanx. And so there's this quote that I pulled from, kind of a historian talking about it, where each individual hoplite or soldier or employee, let's call it, carried his shield on his left arm, protecting not only himself, but also the soldier to the left. And so when we talk about psychological safety, there's a couple things there, but like Ray mentioned, it empowers the individual to perform at their best, partly because they're relying on others or they're relying on the team to make sure that they've got their back, so to speak. That's maybe the phrase that I would use when we think of psychological safety. It's someone's got my back. Or in this case, someone's got my side. And so when you think about individual performance, when you think about courage or bravery, it's not enough just to be courageous or brave on your own. It's to be courageous to the tune of the entire team, right? So we're only as good as our entire team is. And so this concept of psychological safety is really powerful, because what we found, and this is based on research, is that having that safety, having that feeling that they can do their job, do it efficiently, but also doing it in such a way that someone has their back, it's 4 times more impactful, in terms of business goals or in terms of personal goals, than individual performance or structure, or clarity, or any of the other business buzzwords that you could think of when you talk about workplace performance. And so having this idea of psychological safety, which we'll get to more about that in a second, is really crucial. Again, not just on the battlefield, but really in our companies today. So again, if I had to sum it up, it's someone who has my back, someone who's there, who's going to be able to get me and to protect me as I. Maybe you take care of this next couple of slides.
Sure. If you think about this guy, this person, it's somebody that has trust, and they have trust in the team, they have trust in you, and you can trust them. And they're high performers because of that trust they have among everybody. And if they lose that trust, either with the team or they don't have that trust, and they don't trust in other people, they're not able to be high performers. And so what you see on teams is a lot of it may not just be how good a person is, but how trustworthy they are, and how much trust they have in the system, which trust you can have in them. And so that psychological safety is this form of trust. And it's this ability to say, hey, there is a safety hazard, there is a challenge, or there is a problem. And that's normal. That's what we think about. Hey, can somebody point out when there's something we need to work on? But it goes a little deeper than that. What they really need to be able to do is say, hey, there's a safety issue or a problem or a challenge, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I'm not sure what to do about it. They have to admit the vulnerability in order to get the solution created correctly. Or they may have to say, hey, I'm worried how this might affect the project or how this might affect my team. I'm scared of what might happen. And so having a level of trust that you can really have vulnerability and share is really what we're talking about with psychological trust. It's not just point out a problem, but actually understand how it connects to other people and be able to communicate. And one of the challenges you have with mental health is 61% of workers have said they are lonely in the workplace. And this is not people staying at home and being alone on the couch. This is people who are at work or in meetings such as this one, and they don't feel like they fit in. They don't feel like they're going to be accepted. They don't feel like they're good enough. And because of that, they're not going to be willing to speak up. They're not going to have the trust and have the feeling that they can reach out and actually fix things or help solve problems, those kinds of things. So we have to really think about this concept of vulnerability, psychological trust. And we have the same problem with suicide. Look at suicide in male-dominated industries. It's more people die from suicide than die from the other fatal four hazards combined. In any male-dominated industry, it's 2 to 3 times the suicide rate, the average industry. And so, and you look at construction, it's the highest by far, it's 4 times. And so this shows that we have a challenge, psychological, and it's this concept of what we might call the strong silent. Is this belief that if you're strong and you're silent and you're stoic, then that's courageous. That shows you that you're a good, strong person who's dependable. But it's really just the opposite. Courage comes from being vulnerable. Courage comes from sharing. It's not courageous to stay quiet and not say something and not share how you feel. That's actually less courageous because it doesn't require any vulnerability. What's courageous is to be vulnerable and say, hey, I've got challenges. I have fears. I have problems with my relationship. I have problems with potential addiction. I have problems with family. And to be able to talk to people about that and share that. So when we talk about psychological safety, we really want to flip the script. Get people to be courageous by speaking up. Get people to be courageous by sharing. And the loneliness and the suicide comes from not having that ability. That's the reason they're so strong in these industries. And so how do we do that? What do we do? Well, one of the things we need to do is get the leaders of our organizations to show how they have challenges. Because all of our leaders have had various challenges, either mental health, family, with addiction, with just failure on the job, failure in life in general. We need to get our leaders to share and let everybody know that, hey, it's normal. This is what it's like to be successful. There's all kinds of challenges we all have to face. We need to talk about it. We need to share them. We need to work together to help solve it. And we want people to feel like that person is like me. And so who else is feeling like this? And it may not just be the leaders, it may be our buddies. Maybe we have partners. And so one of the things we can do is reach out and have peer discussions, reach out and have buddies or partners who help us feel more safe and give us somebody to talk to. Because if I'm having a challenge, I feel like that leader is like me, or I have a buddy who's like me, or I have somebody who I can talk to, much more likely to let those things out, be more willing to communicate, be more willing to do something.
Hey.
And then the next thing is, how do we contribute ideas? How do we let people bring up concerns? For instance, the concept of, I know this needs to be done, but I don't know how to. And so we have to encourage people and encourage them to say, hey, do you know how? Do you understand what to do? Do you think this is going to work? Is this going to make you feel better? Is this going to help you feel safer? And so again, we go to male-dominated industries. We need to switch and start talking about feelings, not just the factual stuff, which is really tough. Really sounds tough. One more thing is asking plenty of questions, right? People aren't normally going to speak up. They're not normally going to put themselves out there. And so we need to make it okay for them to be vulnerable. To ask them questions about their lives, about how they feel, about what's going on. So the more questions we ask, the more people are going to feel psychologically safe enough to speak up and do the thing. And then finally, failure is good. We want people to fail. We want people to make mistakes. What we want to do is control those into small mistakes. Not let them fail big, but let them fail small. And then encourage them to fail again and fail again. Because if people feel like they can fail, then they're going to go out there, they're going to take the risks and do the things to solve the problems we need to solve. But if they feel like they should never fail, then they're not going to take the risks and do the things we need them to do to be successful, to do the things we need them to do to be safe, and to do the things we need them to do to be personally safe, psychologically. And so we really want to teach them to fail fast.
Oh, on that note, so in high performing companies with strong leaders, I can see this playing out really, really well. But we all know that there's those leaders who are that silent type, who are not really active with the organization. How do you get those leaders to engage?
Well, the first thing is we redefine leadership, because you're right. There are those guys who are the strong, silent type and the leaders, and they're not going to speak out.
Yeah.
But they may have partners, and they may have people like, I may not be the leader of the company, but I can still be a leader in the company. And so just me speaking will encourage them to speak out. And also finding other people. There may be a CEO who's more quiet and COO who's more talking, or a CFO who's more quiet, and maybe the person who runs HR is more talking. So we go to find different leaders, and leaders can be found at all levels. And you see that in a company. There may be a certain supervisor, a certain project guy who everybody looks to, even though they're not necessarily a high level.
So
getting those people to speak works as well.
So it's the kind of the Simon Sinek approach to leadership, where it's not necessarily a role or a title. It's the actual person themselves and their performance as a leader.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Awesome. Sorry, go on.
Okay, yeah, I was going to really close us out here, Chad, and then we turn it back over. We gave kind of a battle analogy that's from 3,000 years ago. I wanted to bring something a little more closer to home, and so back in the '90s, this is a picture of the Ursa rig that Shell Oil built out in the Gulf of Mexico. One of the largest, construction projects, one of the largest rigs out there, their deep water exploration. And they've gotten written up by all these different newspapers or Harvard Business Review, things like that, because they had this amazing performance of 99% uptime with an 84% reduction in incidents. And so when you think about rigs, when you think about people who are operating on that, it's a very dangerous lifestyle. It's a very dangerous place to be. You have typically you're working 5 to 7 days on and then 5 to 7 days off, and so you've got a very interesting group of people who are working on this. When they dug in, when they did the research and learned more about what the leader of this project did, they found some very interesting things. Number one is that it was more about vulnerability, really preaching that psychological safety that led to a lot of these reduction in incidents. And the story goes, and this is really fascinating to me, is that a woman named Claire Nuer, she's French, and she's a Holocaust survivor, or she passed away a couple years ago. She cold called the guy who was leading this operation and said, "Hey, I think I have some ideas around how we could improve safety." And so he brought her in, and she explained conflict resolution. She explained a lot of the things that she picked up and learned during her days in the Holocaust. And so what they did is they had group therapy sessions, for lack of a better term, where these individuals who were working on the rig would talk about their families, talk about their friends, talk about their goals. And then what they discovered is that when you care about someone, when you learn about someone's personal life, you care about them professionally, you care for their safety. And so you're not just making decisions for yourself, you're making decisions for someone next to you because you care about them. And so it sounds really silly sometimes, maybe sounds really cynical, but what they found is that if they could take these trainings and these learnings and these developments within the rig, they've applied that to a lot of their other operations as well, as it relates to the Shell Oil company. And so again, I just wanted to share that real life example. When you think about psychological safety, having your back, sometimes it can mean literally sharing your failures or feeling like you are known or feeling like someone is like you. It can also be some sessions where you just get to know each other, right? So on a deeper level, spending time with each other, learning where they're coming from, things like that. And so I highly recommend you reading up on this on your own time because it's a fascinating story. But again, I wanted to bring some real life scenarios to our conversation today. So. But anyways, Chad, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. One question. When you were talking about getting everybody together and speaking in peer groups, making themselves more vulnerable. I think there's an obvious elephant in the room with generational differences and common interests. That's another thing that if you have any tactics that would help companies get over that.
Sure. Mentorship and partnership or apprenticeship is a really good start to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can get an older person to help a younger person figure out what to do. The older person usually feels like, hey, I need or and I say older, more experienced person feels like, hey, I need to share now. I've done pretty well. I need to share. The younger person is always eager to learn. So pairing those people up is a really good way to do the differences in the generations. And just so we're clear, this happens across generations. The increases we've been seeing with challenges in this area is across generations. As a matter of fact, when you look at the suicide rates, they're more in the older generation. They're more in the Gen X and even the boomers than they are in the younger generations. Now, the younger generations are more struggling with the loneliness and the depression, but the older generation is more struggling with suicide. And so all groups need to work together to help each other. And all groups need to talk, need to communicate, and we need to get rid of this concept of I don't say anything personal. I want to talk about work.
Awesome. Okay, now guys, I'm loving the conversation so far. That was great insight. I kind of want to bring it to some people in the group here. I got a question, but before we do that, I was talking earlier with Ray and Brett, and there were two tactics that we use here at our company that are really effective. I use it both when I'm training fighters and when we're teaching our employees here, two tactics that really help create team cohesion. One, and they're so simple, you guys could literally implement it tomorrow. One is keywords and mantra, and the other one is what we used in policing called after action reviews. And now, because we work in VUCA environments, right, and VUCA environments really deplete people's ability to learn and learn new skills and execute them under critical stress. Keywords, all it is just taking complex concepts and reducing them to words and mantra that trigger the proper behavior in the right moment. So one of the fighters I train is Elias Theodoro. We have a keyword called RIP. And as a coach, when I see him in an opportunity and there's an opportunity for an execution of a complex series of moves, I say that keyword, it triggers the action and he can take advantage of the opportunity quicker than your mind can process decisions. As police officers, we had a secure and scan. If you were in a violent confrontation, you would secure the person for a period of time. Anytime that you had a moment where you could secure him, you would scan around. You just say it over and over and over again to make sure that you can see risk around you. And an effective one for construction is walk and scan. So you train all the employees to repeat daily walk and scan. All it is you have the employees, every time that they're walking the job site, on and off the job site, going to get materials, going to the washroom, they are scanning, looking for safety hazards. So simple. And when you don't use that tactic, they zone out, they get on their phones, and they're distracted. And a distracted worker is a dangerous worker. We all know that. So walk and scan is really effective. You're literally turning all of your employees into safety supervisors. Now, what keywords and mantra are effective in is making sure that they learn and execute skills in complex VUCA environments. So it overcomes the impact that critical stress has on our minds in terms of adopting new skills. But my favorite tactic for bringing teams together, normalizing vulnerability, normalizing psychological safety is after action reviews. And this is something else that you can bring to your companies right away. All it is after every project or any type of incident that happens on a regular basis, any type of project, or if you guys have, like for us, when we do sales presentations or when we finish an implementation in software, we always have after action reviews, and it's 3 simple questions. What was the goal? Were we perfect? And who else needs to know? That's it. So it's very simple. It lasts 5 to 15 minutes after the incident. And what happens in every single after action review is you're identifying ways that you can become better, but really what's happening is you're creating a tighter team cohesion And the people involved in the after action review, they over time learn to take accountability for anything that went wrong, but also celebrate the wins that happened. Because when you ask yourself, were we perfect? If the answer is no, you want to identify the things that you just kicked ass in, but you also want to identify the things that you can make everybody better. And then the question of who else needs to know is a critical question, because now you're bringing it out to others who can benefit. So the whole organization gets better. The level of team cohesion is epic. But most importantly, you get people talking. It's their job to bring out their observations. So simple tactic, really effective, but there's one fatal flaw in it that everyone needs to be aware of. And I've done this myself, and it ruins the ability to create psychological safety. And that's when you only do AARs after when things go wrong. So if you just do it when things go wrong, it gets associated with bad behaviors. And that's when people start to shell up, and you've destroyed any ability of creating psychological safety in your organization. So this is a matter of all in, all the time. That is what enables the team cohesion and a high level of psychological safety. So I personally, those are my two favorite tactics because they're so damn easy. But you just got to commit to them. So on that note, we still got some time left, which is awesome. We can open up the discussion. One question that I wanted to ask the group is, now that you've gotten some insight here, I'm just going to scroll up to our list here. Now that you got a little bit of insight into what would be required to develop psychological safety and resilience within your organization, who would be the best person or department to take the lead and make sure it was executed properly? It's, safety. HR is often the two. Everybody goes to leaders, but leaders don't really have the time to execute. So, you know what, Jeff, I'm going to pick on you right out of the gate, because you've been both in software, you've been on the consultant industry, and you've worked top down and bottom up all through construction. So you've seen it all in terms of roles. What would you say would be the best person / department to execute a psychological safety and resilience program?
So I'm Jeff Sample, I guess. And thanks for that one, Chad. Put me on the spot.
Yep, didn't even warn you.
No, Ray and Brett actually hit on it. I'm a Simon Sinek fan too, Chad. So leaders is not a tag that you're given choose to do. And actually, I found the leaders are the best person or part of the organization is actually people. And it's usually the toughest, quietest one. Whether, and I mean that I've come across it really from all backgrounds, but there's always a tough one, right? That whatever they are, they're considered tough. And when they take a moment to stop and say, this is actually a problem. I've suffered from this problem or have this problem, and this is how I've overcome it. It usually goes against their character. So character is the wrong word. It goes against our view of their character, right? They come across, they walk in the room, they're boisterous, they're strong, they're confident, and then they unleash it. And that to me is the person. It really doesn't matter where. I also really think when it comes to this, grassroots. I believe in a flat structure rather than a structure around. And representation from all over the organization is usually good. In construction, particularly, the field bringing that vulnerability to the office. The office very rarely realizes that people go to their jobs every day and wonder something will hit them. It's real interesting. I mean, it's real easy to sit in a meeting around a safety meeting and talk about this with a hammer falling out of a person's tool belt from scaffolding. It's a lot different standing on that site. So for me, that's the best it can be. And what we did at Gallegos that worked really good, we created an app that walk a safety cache and use my auditor, so that office people can go walk job sites and take down safety. So you walk up the scaffolding, and I would hit scaffolding on the app, and it would ask me all these questions. Is there a green tag? Is there a red tag? Is there a tow board? And it would lay out what a tow board was. And then it would say right there, like, and this is what happens if that hammer can, when you're standing there, it hits you. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's the ways I've seen it. You know, and then always insert your own. I have this problem.
What did you say? What?
Insert yourself.
Okay.
Do it yourself. Like, I like to bring it out of other people. That's the storyteller. I don't really tell my story yet.
Yep.
I'm gonna get better about that myself.
Challenge. There's the challenge. I was so what I heard is, to simplify that, creating a task force that really represents the entire company and to make a concerted effort to make sure that the field and office is involved. Who else has experience in this that can give a story that might shed some more clarity? Oh man, I'm gonna pick on somebody. Emily.
I was just gonna say that I'll jump in.
I saw a little bit of a tell there. I was like, okay, Emily's she's chomping at the bit. All right, shoot.
Yeah, she's ready to go. So I worked in this a little bit beforehand, and it reminded me of my previous work before I came to construction. I was working in higher ed, and I had, as student advisor, a lot of training around talking about mental health, identifying struggling, what I might say to them. And that is a very different set of tools or set of resources than I apologize. There's construction going on my building.
Yeah, we can hear it.
There might be some noise in the background. But I have language and I have tools that a lot of my colleagues don't. I have that background. And I think that it's one thing for leaders to endorse or support vulnerability and psychological safety, and that's wonderful. But if you don't give your employees and your teams the resources with which to have those conversations, and just an example, like one thing I learned in higher ed is you should ask if they are having suicidal ideation or if they're having thoughts of self-harm. And that is not something that occurs to most people, or that most people think right move. And so I think that providing that training, providing that language would really help empower teams to just to know the step and how they might help.
That's interesting you say that. One thing that we do here is we have what's called accountability buddies. And we call them accountability buddies because part of their job is to extract information, not just be there as eyes and ears and listen to them, but to observe and extract. And it kind of sounds like that's what you were talking about.
I think so, but on both sides of that too, I think that like at my current company, we've had some conversation, which I work for Dado, by the way, it's technology.
Yeah.
I didn't introduce that, but we've had some conversations about our own warning signs of when our mental health is struggling. So for instance, I'm really unfocused and really withdrawn if my mental health is not doing well. I don't have to explain why in a team meeting, but if someone is maybe aware that that's going on, they might, have some better context for, how my behavior might be impacting the meeting or whatnot. So I think that it kind of works both ways, where you can reach out to someone else, but you can also allow for that vulnerability of someone else to recognize, maybe when something is off with you as well.
Interesting. So, and now you said higher education. What age group?
So this was, it was at Northwestern University right outside Chicago. So like college freshmen through seniors, maybe 17 to 21.
Excellent. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, sorry, I'm taking notes here, guys, for the summary. Standing. Interesting. The term you used, warning signs. So you're dialed into your own warning signs when you're, and others around you. Is this something that you discuss with them, the warning signs? So they're okay. So
yeah, it's something that our teams have discussed, and we're a small team, we're a small company. So maybe that's a bit easier, but I think within individual teams as well, you can develop that. But a prerequisite to that is knowing your own warning signs too.
Right.
Which something is not something that necessarily a lot of people do know, or everyone does know. So again, I think that having the tools and the training and the conversations just help move everyone toward a place where this is more normalized and you're thinking about your own reactions as well as the behavior and struggles of others.
Great. Okay, question on that. Ray or Brett? Very important point here for that Emily made on making sure that the proper resources are in place. I wouldn't even, like, let's say I'm a leader and I don't even know where to look and I don't even know what to ask for to make sure the resources in place. Where do they go?
So, first off, Joyages.com. We've got tons of resources, free resources as well as the app. So, I mean, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Also, info@Joyages.com, where we'll send you stuff. Things like suicide prevention. I mean, Emily hit on something really, really important, and that is you ask people, are you considering suicide? That's one of the most important questions we can ask. And we're all scared to do it. And we need to make people not scared to do it. Emily mentioned another thing. She called it normalizing. It has to become more normal to have these discussions, to think about this thing. But the MHA, Mental Health America, various places, suicide prevention, it's an American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness, they all have great resources, things that you can talk about and ask, and little flyers you can print off. And obviously, info@Joyages.com, and we'll send you anything or help find what you're specifically looking for. There's also great stuff on Google, little videos and things like that help people. We put videos together that are specifically for construction, so it's construction people going through this in these little 2-minute videos so that people can identify with them and things like that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff. Construction industry for suicide prevention. I don't think that's exactly the right name, but that's another group that's got a lot of really good resources. So again, suicide prevention, teaching that to everybody, teaching people how to talk about that. Suicide is number one killer. We need to start working on it.
The other thing I would say, Ray, is a lot of, when you talk about benefits, a lot of companies have unique benefits, right? So they have the EAP or something like that. The only problem is that we're relying on individuals to raise their hand to say they have a problem or to say they need help. And usually it takes them to their HR team and to talk about it. So one of the things that we've actually learned we do some work within our first responder communities, police, fire. They have mandatory, they call it oil checks. And so you have to get, just like you get your car registered and just like you get your primary care physician typically at a certain time of year, when your oil check is coming up, and it's an excuse if you need it to go talk to someone because everyone else is going to do it. And so you're not weird, you're not going to a room that no one else will go to. Everyone's going to go to that room and everyone's going to be asked the same questions, and so it gives you the ability to kind of have that touch point. Obviously, mental health is a day-by-day thing. Today you might be doing fine, tomorrow you might not be, and so it doesn't officially solve it, but I think having the resources out in front of individuals, the way they don't have to go raise their hand and say they need is really critical as well.
So again, normalizing the behavior. Brett, how would, I'm in software, like analytics, like data, how does an organization track the effectiveness of these efforts?
So that's a great question, because there's a sharp edge here, because if you're tracking too much stuff, then people get really worried, right?
Right.
Because they're cynical, they're worried about what their employer knows, and so there's a couple of things you can do. One of them is making sure that individuals understand it's confidential, right? So a lot of individuals believe that their HR team or their boss are going to find out about them going to seek care, going to have some sort of episode. And so making sure that they know that that's confidential, and making sure that they know that no one knows is really critical. And by the way, don't just say that, right? So like, if you actually are able to know, like, figure out a way to not know, right? But the other thing that we like to look at a lot is there's a lot of things like productivity or absenteeism, that's hard to measure. I think what's easier to measure is people who like being at work. So I know that's not as easy to measure too, but people who have friends at work, people who walk around the office and have a coffee break and talk to people and that sort of thing, internally, those people are genuinely happy to be there. Right? And so we talk about, the best predictor of someone leaving your company is when they don't have a friend there. And so just having that kind of buddy system, like we talked about earlier, is something you can measure. I think, and again, you can't put a statistic around it, but I think you can measure just so people are happy to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, I don't know if you have any other thoughts there.
No, I agree 100%. And if there's a person at work that you don't like being around and nobody else likes being around, that's a person at risk. Unfortunately, that's the person that you need to reach out to, you need to find help for. The guys who get along with everybody, you can kind of see when they change. You need to look at those people that are on their own, get along, and aren't getting along with people.
So that's that stat is pretty scary. Then the fact that 61% of employees are lonely, and part of the characteristics of that person is that they don't have the confidence and or courage to speak up, which is going to get them a social circle that would be a safety net. So it's kind of a vicious circle. So maybe do you know of any real simple tactics that can dial in on that 61% to kickstart the courage?
One of the biggest things, the easiest things to do, and we found this especially in male-dominated industries like police and fire, and that is ask them to help somebody else. Hey, look, I'm taking Joe out to lunch over here because Joe seems to be struggling a little bit. Why don't you come help me help Joe? And if somebody can help somebody else, if they think they're doing it to help somebody else, they're much more likely to do it. That helps them. And so just using that concept of giving them the opportunity to reach out or to help somebody else, and kind of pushing them into a situation. We talked about apprenticeship, we talked about mentorship, or just, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm taking Joe to lunch, and I'd love if you come with me and help Joe feel better. That's a quick, easy way to get it started.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Nick Maletta, you're Cal.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
You
Hi,
must.
everybody.
You must have a perspective on this.
Yeah. So some quick background. I'm a newbie. It's my first meeting. So thank you guys for having me. Nick Maletta works for a company called Holmes Murphy. We have a connection to Joyages folks, and Cal has been a friend and colleague for about 7 years now. Got a passion around mental well-being, Cal, and really trying to learn as much as I can. I work primarily with design professionals from a risk management standpoint. So I'm researching and building around the idea of design and building with well-being in mind, sort of that built environment idea. And so this has been really interesting to me and opened my eyes to really a lot of the things that need to occur for this safety to happen, or this psychological safe zone. And I think about my own situation, and a lot of times I'm on a team of specialists that's about 15 of us in a larger company, about 1,000 people, and a lot of times there's a lack of trust within the team that really breaks this down, or a misalignment, right, where I speak with my leader and I think, okay, we're on the same page, and then I go to implement or try to create this safe zone, and it's completely undermined by other conversations or other comments that are made. And it's easy to do. It's one quick comment, and swoop, and it's really killed that ability to be vulnerable. So just thinking of ways to take this back to my group and apply this to my group, and also ways to share this with others, and be sure to provide those guideposts so they know, hey, here are things that will kill this automatically, or here are things shut this down right away, and start from scratch, and it'll take longer. So that's my 2 cents for now. Appreciate it. Chad, whenever you're ready, Cal is ready for the MMA.
Amazing. It's like I said, it's never too late to start.
That's Jay.
Oh man, it's actually now that you said that, really funny. Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Just think about it, like rolling around on the ground and trying to choke each other out. Very simple. I have to admit, out of all the things that you could do to strengthen your mind, build resilience, and even the aspects of psychological safety and vulnerability, go try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And when you get into the positions that you do, and you're grappling and learning something new at a combat level, a safe combat level, the amount of insight that you get into yourself, you really learn to be honest with yourself, and you're working with another person who is continuously challenge you both physically and mentally. It has a profound impact on mental health, and I say that because I've witnessed it with my own eyes. So as much as that was a joke, it's kind of not. You said right at the very beginning, you said design with well-being in mind. Can you elaborate on that? Like, is this like actually physical designing, or are you talking about designing with the team with well-being in mind, or actually the physical design of the space that you're building is with well-being in mind?
So original research was that, just the actual physical design with well-being in mind. So that really plays into, if you guys are familiar with IWBI and the WELL certification, or Fit Well, and kind of that movement, really a movement that has taken on more so in the UK. I think it's taken on more steam and building there. Mm-hmm. Really trying to learn from that and see if there's a way that you can implement that here in the United States to catch on a little bit more. I think just early stages of the movement, but something that Cal and I are spending a lot of time on. But I also think your comment, it would pertain to the teams that you build, whether it's for a specific project or a specific proposal or whatever it may be. I mean, if there are people that you know that probably shouldn't work together, but have a history of clashing or whatever it may be, maybe that is the best thing, and Ray or Brett can tell me right or wrong, or maybe it's, maybe we build these teams knowing that those two have that clash, and I definitely think it can go both ways.
Interesting. I find that there's a lot of times people are trying to force people into teams, and sometimes you don't really work well together, and they're trying to force that team component. And I like to make a distinction between team and teaming. It's teaming is, when you've got a bunch of people, they're not necessarily on a team, but what they're doing is they're acting like a team. And you can have people that you don't like on that team when you're teaming. So I find an effective strategy could be redefining what team is. A team is really that group of people that really do care for each other, like the Spartans, and they're living together, they're working together, they're doing everything together. They're always within that 15 feet that defines culture. And then, like an analogy with teaming is, you could be in a restaurant, it gets attacked by zombies, and all of a sudden, everybody in that restaurant, they're teaming. They're trying to keep the zombies out from killing you. So you may not know them, you may not even like some of them, but you're teaming. So it is possible to work with people that you don't necessarily like if you redefine it, psychologically redefine what it is you're doing. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else who can answer the question of who is the best person or department to lead this development in your company? Sarah?
I can answer, but it'll be a little different for me. My name's Sarah Robin. I'm with Procore, so we're a software company. We actually have a learning and development department. They do all kinds of different things, but that is something that they focus on, psychological safety, among other things. So it's really great to have that. Really love also what Jeff said earlier about if this initiative is not at your company, being the one to step up and create something. I love that. But yeah, I think it depends on where you are and what resources are available. One thing that I've really appreciated is I have a template that I fill out each week for my one-on-one with my manager. The first question is a personal check-in. And so the first thing we talk about is like, how are you doing? What's going on? And so I think it's so important for a manager to have that be part of the conversation. Whatever the answer is, don't shy away from that, make it feel normal, accept that, ask questions, and really just be there for that person.
Amazing. So you guys, so the learning and development department, they're already implementing, or you already have implemented psychological safety and resilience programs?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So can you describe how Procore got that going and who was involved?
Yeah, I think it actually started with HR with us and then moved into the learning and development team, which has been growing and growing and growing. And so basically, any of the teams at Procore can reach out to the L&D department and let them know what type of training they're looking for. If we have something available, they'll sign you up with one of the trainers. If they don't have a particular training available, they'll reach out externally and try and find something for you.
Interesting. Excellent. How long have you guys had that in play?
I think just a couple of years. Yeah, I've been with Procore for about 5 years, and I'd say that's probably been in play for about 2.
So back on the conversation we were having with Brett on analytics, is there anything that is coming out of the department in terms of analysis that is showing as having an impact?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I could definitely find that out.
Yeah. Interesting. That's awesome. I think in a perfect world, that 61% of, that staggering statistic of 61% of employees feeling lonely, it sounds like companies are already going in this direction, which is awesome. So in theory, we should be seeing that drastically reduce. Has anybody else on the call have their companies already implemented something relating to psychological safety and resilience? No. Nick, you're shaking your head.
So obviously being a risk management firm that has health and well-being as one of our main core businesses, we've got partnerships and avenues that we are trying to implement internally and then also obviously get those externally to clients. So partnership with Joyages would be one of those that we have today. Got another group that we work with called Ethos internally, which again focus sort of the holistic approach to an employee, right? Their whole tagline is the whole employee goes to work. And so there's physical, emotional, psychological, financial, 5 or 6 things that we focus on that we try to help employees of not only our group and implementing those strategies internally, but then selfishly we sell that externally as well as a service offering to our clients. So that's what we've done today. I've watched some of the Joyages stuff that's available to me as an employee of the company and someone who's interested and has a passion around mental health and well-being. And it's been a fun transition for us and a fun switch because we were an old bricks and mortar insurance company, insurance brokerage, and now we're kind of shifting into more of the areas where we really are seeing ridiculous impacts. Brett brought up the oil rig story. That's an unbelievable impact that adding a safety precaution physically would never field, much like mental health.
So, brick and mortar. Funny segue into Alice. Alice, nice to finally actually see you physically here. I know we spoke on the phone ages ago. Now,
Yeah.
you guys, the companies that you guys have acquired alone, you've got to have some insight on this, on how some companies have brought it on successfully, or if they're even going in that direction.
So I think the interesting thing about the loneliness, I guess, idea is that like with COVID-19, you know, there were kind of concerns around, you know, now everyone working remote, how people are, I guess, you know, able to express themselves or to feel like better connected to the company while working from home. And we had this like, just a session with all of the portfolio CEOs and trying to understand what were some of the interesting things that they've done to help the employees feel more connected with each other and the company itself. And one of the CEOs actually did a one-on-one with every employee in the company. Granted, these are startups, so they're like max 20 people.
Right.
But that ended up getting really good feedback around, you know, just how people are doing on a personal level as well as a work level. And I think just building that connection from, you know, the leadership with all of the employees and getting insight into, you know, how can the company help these individuals in like such tough times, like on a personal level as too, and getting that understanding. I thought that was super important. And then we ended up seeing a couple of other portfolio company CEOs do the same thing and got a ton of really great feedback. So I think, you know, with loneliness and especially now with COVID-19 and I think the world is trending more remote work, that, you know, connection is going to be more important. And I think it's a small gesture of just reaching out to people and just connecting.
So interesting. So Ray and Brett, you might be able to help here. Connecting. So everything that I'm hearing, right, comes down to caring, and which requires connecting. Like that seems like foundational. But then you look at the companies out there, it's a competitive environment. Companies have to work, you have to produce, you have to focus on production. There's no time. So I see this as a major barrier.
Yeah, it's actually just the opposite. Because connection is what gives you more production and more engagement, more time. And the thing is, if you think about it, I mean, it's normal or obvious when you think about it. If two people don't get along or two people don't feel safe, they don't share information. Things don't get done.
Yeah.
But if they really like each other, they want to help each other be successful, then all of a sudden they're talking to each other at 10 o'clock at night or figuring out ways to brainstorm and come up with new ideas. And so production engagement really significantly increases when that psychological safety comes into play, because I can trust everybody. I can call them up at any time. I can talk to them at any time. And also, for instance, you know, when I have to go home and work, I can't be at the office anymore. I'm going to go call them up and I'm going to talk to them if I like them and I'm connected to them. I believe in them. Whereas I'm just going to go home and be by myself. If I don't trust anybody, I don't like anybody, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And so, you know, your engagement goes up when you're working from home with a company with good psychological safety, and your engagement goes down or your production goes down that has bad psychological.
So basically getting companies to get out of, you know, when they have that attitude, it's about convincing them to get out of the hamster wheel, zoom out.
Sending people home at 3 to go have a beer together is one of the most productive things you can do, right? Beer or milk or tea or whatever. But sending people, telling people to go into the kitchen and talk around the coffee pot, that's very important. And to Alice's point, the leaders reaching out and saying, how are you doing? How are things going for you? That's the best use of their time. There's probably nothing they can do better than to connect with those people, let those people believe that they have their back and that this person believes in me and this person will be there for me. Because that person will run through walls.
Yep. I love it. Awesome. Okay. Anyone else have I know Nick Tilford, you said I could see, oh man, are we getting short of time here? I could see that your company didn't get anything implemented. Is there any chance of any movement at your company? Sir.
Kelly, it was on you.
It said 110 seconds, and now we're back. Did you guys get that too?
We did, Kelly, the joke was on you.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's the quickest
I'm glad I wasn't
100.
saying something like someone was in my breakout room and all of a sudden you got cut off.